So I have a few gimbals behind me right now. One in particular is brand new by Zhiyun, and it's called the Weebil 3E or the Cinepeer. And it's actually a really familiar gimbal. It reminds me of my older and very precious Weebil S. But there's huge differences between these two gimbals. So, how does the new Cinepeer compare to an iconic, legendary gimbal that I know was really popular with a lot of you, including myself? And what are some of the features? Let's dive in. So full disclosure, Zhiyun did provide this product for free, but it's not a sponsored video. They don't get to see this video. They don't get to have any input in what I say, but I did want to disclose that I did get the product for free. So whatever that's worth to you. Quick thing to note, I'm not a huge gimbal guy. I like gimbals and I think they have a place, but I wasn't the type that would buy the latest and greatest gimbal every single year. A little backstory just to give you guys an idea. I bought the Weebil S. It was my first ever gimbal, and I loved it. It was the perfect gimbal for me. This gimbal basically did it all for me. I had the Canon 80D on there, then the Canon R, and then the Canon R5, and then it kind of started to slow down a bit, and it happens with gimbals. Eventually, the motors do start to degrade a bit, and they can't necessarily hold on to the same payload. I started seeing that with the Weebil S, started vibrating a lot, and it was done. And it was okay. I never really replaced it. From time to time, if I was doing some gimbal work and there was something really, really light that I was going to throw on there, like maybe a prime lens and just get some gimbal shots using my Sony a7S III, I'd pull it out and it would perform just fine. But then I got the DJI Ronin 4D, which is my cinema camera that has a built-in gimbal, so I never really found a need to replace the Weebil S. So fast forward now, Zhiyun contacted me and said, hey, you know, we have this new gimbal. It's going to be very familiar to you. It's going to remind you of the Weebil S. Would you like to try it out? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And let me tell you, there's two things that I learned. One, I remember really, really hating balancing, right? When you have to balance the gimbal. And in particular with the Weebil S, there's this little like slide lock levers that were frustrating to use. And sometimes I would think that they're unlocked and they weren't, and they were actually locked. And then, yeah. So I can tell you that that's still probably my least favorite thing about gimbals is balancing and having to rebalance every time you do something very, very minor. But I can also tell you that I was also very surprised at how easy it was to actually balance. I mean, it's a lot different than back in the Weebil S days. I like that they are now including levers that lock into place, and the actual lock mechanisms for each axis is a very simple, very tactile click button response. So I like that a lot. I was disappointed that there wasn't this like auto lock feature like some other brands, but it's fine. I mean, at the price point that this is coming in, it all makes sense. Another thing that I was really surprised with is this gimbal has the ability to go between horizontal shooting and vertical shooting, and we actually use that quite a bit. We had a shoot where the client wanted some Instagram reels, so we went into vertical mode, and I was actually quite surprised to see just how easy it was to switch over to vertical mode and how easy it was to just balance very quickly on the fly.
The cool thing about this gimbal is it shoots both horizontal and vertical. And all you got to do is unlatch it, little button, press it, comes off, and then you have teeth right here, and you stick it in here. Now you're in vertical mode, and then now you just balance it just like any other gimbal. I actually found that the balancing is really easy. There we go. So that's balanced. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to set the motor. Just come over here, go to menus, go to the motor, and we're going to let it just auto level itself. So I'm going to tune everything up. You can see the camera here is shaking. It's all normal.
For his actual haircut, though, I'm gonna go ahead and get started though, because I have another one in the city.
That's good.
Okay.
So we are all set to shoot the video.
Yeah.
So that was really refreshing, and I love that it has that capability, because I don't know about you guys, but more and more clients are asking for vertical shots, dedicated vertical shots in vertical mode. And previously I got away with it by just shooting horizontally in 4K and then cropping in. So it's a nice added touch with this gimbal. Now you have all of the basic modes: pan, follow, lock, all that great stuff, POV mode, and even a selfie mode, right? If you want to vlog with this. And it was also nice that it was all familiar. You have the trigger button, just like with the Weebil S. You can double click it, triple click it, and it's going to go into a certain mode. Vortex mode is a very popular mode, and you can actually get into POV mode when you double click the menu button, and then if you double click it again, you'll get into vortex mode. So if you're wondering how to get in there, that's how you do it. Now, a new feature that wasn't available with the Weebil S is this has Bluetooth. So now you can remotely control certain cameras. This is where there's a big issue. It's not with the gimbal, it's with the camera, but I wanted to highlight this. If you guys don't know already, the Sony a7S III has had several firmware updates recently. And in particular, firmware update 3.0 was a disaster. And then Sony came out with 3.01, which was supposed to be the fix, which is also a disaster. What happened was my camera, my Sony a7S III, was functioning fine. I had zero issues with my Bluetooth and my Wi-Fi, and then after I updated to 3.0, I now have a prompt that comes up that says Bluetooth and Wi-Fi malfunction. And I made some videos on it. Go check those out if you want to learn all the details. But long story short, I cannot connect to anything. I can't connect to this gimbal. I can't connect to a phone. I can't connect to anything. My Wi-Fi and Bluetooth do not work. So unfortunately, I was super disappointed, but wasn't able to use the remote Bluetooth control with my Sony a7S III. I do have an older Canon R, and I was able to connect to the Canon R. I know you could with the Weebil S, as long as you had a cable that you were connected to. If you are a Sony user, do not update to firmware 3.0 or 3.01. There seems to be some issues there where you're possibly going to lose your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi functions. And I just want to make sure that you're not blaming it on the gimbal. It's not the gimbal's fault. It's a Sony bug issue that's pretty well known now on Reddit and things like that. Another big upgrade is the screen. There's a tiny screen on the Weebil S, and there's a huge screen on the new Cinepeer. And I like the screen. I think the screen does fine. It looks great. I like where the ergonomics are now. Very similar to the Weebil S, but the Weebil S was much lower. So it kind of felt awkward, and you had the focus wheel up here, and the trigger was over here. But now everything is where you need it, right? Your thumb can activate the joystick, the buttons, the record buttons, and so forth. You have your trigger finger. You can now pull focus over here. And then, of course, you have your menus and all that good stuff. So how do I feel about this gimbal? It's a fantastic gimbal. I was shocked by the motors. There's a huge leap forward in technology between the two. And it was actually able to handle my Sony a7S III with my Sigma 24-70 2.8, the original one, the big boy one, just fine. And, you know, all my other lenses like the 24-105 f4. It was able to handle my Canon R. I didn't realize it, but the Canon R is bigger than the Sony a7S III and a little bit heavier. I didn't have to add any weights or anything like that. Took it on the shoot, really easy to use. It reminded me why gimbals are so popular. I put it in vortex mode a couple times, was able to shoot some vortex shots, which clients love. And then getting that crispy, smooth gimbal look is just, it's beautiful. It's, you know, it's a look that can't be replicated, right? So I think this is a fantastic gimbal. I think the price is just right. I think there's going to be a sale for Father's Day, so I'll put a link in the description below. All that stuff that you need to know, a discount code and where to get it and all that good stuff. So overall, I think if you're in the market for gimbals, this is a great gimbal to consider buying at this price point. And if you're not going to be going to a bigger cinema camera, you're going to be using a mirrorless or a DSLR camera, it fits the bill. That's it for me, guys. I hope you found this video informative. And if you did, please consider subscribing and joining our channel membership so we can continue making videos like this one. Catch you guys on the next video.